I started as a community organizer, and our group moved to a heavy education approach in terms of what is going on in all branches of government that cover our county. So we pivot to Board of Supervisors, City Council. We're heavy with the legislature because the state's busy right now. And so we've had a heavy focus at the state level. But this election to us is important because we don't like what we're seeing in our backyards at all levels of government with all parties. And so we decided to do a forum last night and invited all 40 candidates. Something happened, so KC didn't get that invite. And so I invited her to come on and do this interview. So KC, last night we went through, we had a congressional candidate, we had assembly candidates, we had city council, we had central committee, there was somebody running for judge, and then Sac County Office of Education. What we did is we gave everybody a couple minutes to discuss what it is that you aim to do. Why are you running? And what are you passionate about? And we gave everybody a few minutes to go over that. So I'm going to hand the floor to you if you would like to tell everybody where you stand on things.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I don't know where that invite went, but I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to talk. And thank you again. Hi, everyone. My name is KC Shuft. I live in Colonial Heights, which is kind of the Tahoe Park area. I've lived here for 20 years. I've been a neighborhood advocate, organizer for at least 10 years. I was a part of a leader in our neighborhood association for 10 years. And I love Sacramento. And like you just said, I am one of those people who sees that our city is in absolute crisis on multiple levels. My neighborhood was left out in the last redistricting. So we are in the deferred area, just our little square of a neighborhood without a council member. And that was almost 2 years ago now. So we've really just been fending for ourselves. I walk my neighbors, or I walk my dogs around my neighborhood, and I talk to my neighbors pretty much every day. And I realized just how frustrated people were. We had a lot of crime in our neighborhood. We had a couple of camps where the health situation was deplorable. We'd call 311, we'd call 911, no response from anyone. And some of my neighbors have experienced some real horrors, who were living, one of them right next door to one of the camps. And one of the camps is what we affectionately call the drive-through drug den. It's literally a drug enterprise. Dealers stand on the corner. The cars pull up like it's a fast food joint. They make their transaction and off they go. And you know, we became very frustrated. So I decided to create a coalition in my neighborhood, bring all of my neighbors together to create a bigger voice, to figure out what the hell is going on in Sacramento and why is it so broken. And we would have, and we still do have meetings, but we started with Zoom meetings, inviting various city officials and departments to our meetings, basically to find out what's going on. Why are we not being responded to? And it started off with us just really screaming at various departments and officials. And, you know, why should we have to do that? Why should we have to scream to be heard and taken care of? You know, this is our tax money. This is, you know, we should be listened to. And we've had everyone from Eric Guerra's office to Department of Community Response, to the police department, to the Parks Department, all the way to Stephanie Wan's office. And I've created some really great relationships through the coalition and trying to figure out what is, you know, going on. And through this process, I realized just how broken Sacramento is on so many different levels. For example, for a city that is so park focused and has 26 parks, the budget is dismal. It's barely enough money just for maintenance and, you know, mowing the grass. There's no money for improvements. The bathrooms at my neighborhood park are locked usually. There's, you know, children can't use the restrooms. And if you know children, you know, sometimes the time that they tell you they have to go to the bathroom to the time they actually go to the bathroom is a very short period of time, and they should have restrooms that are clean and safe to use. And we've been trying to get those bathrooms updated, remodeled for more than 10 years. And it's still an ongoing thing that we're trying to get done. But anyway, through my experience in this coalition and talking to all of these departments and officials, I realized I should run for city council. I never run for anything in my life. But I am a very organized person. I bring people together, and I'm a results person. I want to get things done. We don't see a lot of action here in Sacramento. We hear a lot of words from our city officials, a lot of words, and I think we are done with words. I think we need to see results. And if we don't see results, if we don't see things happening, we don't see it. And that's, I think, a lot of the frustration that we all are feeling right now. So instead of, you know, sitting back and complaining about the problems, I decided to be a part of the solution. And I think that I can represent District 6 the best way possible.
Awesome. Now you disclosed something to me today with the unhoused situation. We have $22 billion that has gone towards homelessness in the state. I have seen the contracts going through the city council, through the county board of supervisors. There's a lot of money coming through Sacramento, and the unhoused situation just keeps expanding. What do you see as a viable solution to make that money actually become effective?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's amazing to me that, well, as of today, we have found out that $66 million has been devoted to the homeless crisis in this town. How does that much money get spent and it only get worse? How is that possible? It's my opinion that there is no accountability that's happening here. I don't think that there is, what do you call it? I don't think that, I think the nonprofits need to be audited. I don't think anyone is paying attention to where that money is going. Yes, so I did mention today, well, before I get into that, I'm a big proponent of safe ground sites. I think that the NIMBYism that we've seen over the last couple of years needs to go away. I think if each district had at least 2 safe ground sites, we could at least start to get on top of this, because one facility on Roseville Road that houses 240 beds does not even scrape the surface of the 10,000 that, or I don't know the last pit count, but let's just say 10,000 homeless people in our city. And that's growing every day. We have 2,400 at the last count, people on the shelter wait list. There's nowhere for them to go. Howard Chan, our city manager, was given the authority last August to move forward in creating more shelters. And he's opened one. Just one. That's not enough. It's just nothing is moving fast enough to get on top of this. And I think we need safe ground sites in each district, because, you know, homeless people, they have connections to the areas they're living, and shipping people off to Roseville Road is not the solution, and it's not enough beds. So we have housing that's been approved, but that's not going to be ready for months or years. So what do we do in the meantime? We can't keep sweeping people around. We need safe sites where people are localized, where we can triage services with whatever they need, whether it's if addiction services, if it's a shower, if it's they just need help getting a job, if it's mental health services. We have to figure out what the root cause is first before we can really address the situation. And we keep hearing about these services that our homeless people are being provided. There's no services. There's just nothing that's being offered. They have nowhere for them to go, and that's unacceptable. You know, our homeless people are people too. And it's not like the majority of them woke up one day and said, hey, honey, I think I want to be homeless today. See you later. Like, that just doesn't happen. And we need to be more proactive. And I think Safe Ground Sites is a good place to start. So I mentioned earlier the homeless motel in my neighborhood. It's recently come to my coalition's attention that the Greens Motel on Stockton Boulevard, which is one of the city contracted homeless hotels, is in, and they are given, they own two of them. The LLC that owns this motel also owns one on Del Paso Boulevard. And they're being given millions of our tax dollars to basically warehouse these people in their rooms. And let me just tell you, none of that money is going toward the property. It's the roach infestation, rats, mold, the conditions these people are being forced to live in are unbelievable. And there's no reason that it should be that way, especially if they're being given this money. So my coalition has taken a lot of the residents at that motel under our wing. Last Sunday, we brought them, there's about 30 children, and it's also a domestic violence shelter. So there's about 30 children living there. We, my coalition and my neighborhood giving group, we coordinated buying and giving a bunch of toys and clothing to the kids that the people there asked for. You know, if children have to live there, at least they should have some nice things to play with, because their playground is a motel parking lot in a dump of a motel. And there are also potentially some illegal evictions that are happening, and, you know, there's nowhere else for these people to go. And we're just getting to the bottom of it. So I think that this is a story you should pay attention to, people of Sacramento who are watching. The Greens Motel and the other 5 city contracted motels, there definitely needs to be some oversight, potential audit about the money. We need to know what's going on there and why that motel is basically falling into decline. And
I was waiting for you to say audit. One of the commenters, because I mean, that's what we think needs to happen at all branches of government, state, county, city. Where's the money going?
yeah.
And itemizing, one of the commenters says, because they're buying $500 tents from their friends when the same tent would cost $50 at Walmart.
Yeah.
So they're pocketing the difference. And so we saw it with the no bid contracts that went on along Florida for the pallet structures. That was a no bid contract that flew through. In fact, we've seen contracts that they have voted on before the elected officials see the contract in writing to know what they're voting on.
Right.
They're just moving money, saying, okay, we need to address this situation. Yes, we do. But if I sign a blank check for my house for bills and I don't have the money for it, who's going to pay it? Right. And so in the meantime, people are being hurt.
Yeah.
And so imagine, you know, and she's saying, imagine all the other overpriced items they're buying from their friends. Another commenter saying $4 million was awarded for pets of the homeless, and the number of pets out in the encampments have only increased. They haven't done any good out there beside providing food with it, which they already did. And I know that was a big issue. I was at the Board of Supervisors meeting when they were going through that, you know, that some of them, there's a high trauma rate for the homeless, and some of them, those are service dogs, or they need their companions, or it was their family dog before they became homeless, and they're not going to abandon it now. But there's a lot of money going into just that, right?
And the nonprofit that runs the Greens Motel is called Step Up on Second. You may have heard of them. They're one of the major nonprofits that are contracted with the city to provide services. And they are just now, it was announced last week that they are being investigated by the DOJ. So the services people are getting are not what we are paying for.
Okay. What is your opinion on the availability of needles? Do you think that's helping or making things worse for those that are on the streets that have addiction issues?
Yeah, I think clean needles are an obvious must. it's ultimately, you know, I mean, the diseases that can happen, reusing needles and things like that. I mean, if the mental health or the drug addiction can't be addressed, then yes, obviously, I think clean needles are definitely needed.
Okay. Um, so one of the, I'm trying to think of the questions that I heard people asking other candidates running for city council last night. One of them was, what is your position on cannabis? We do have multiple companies in the city limits, in your city district, who have legal facilities, and they are experiencing problems with city council. Do you have a position on cannabis when it's legally done to state regulations?
I mean, I don't smoke it myself, but I don't have a problem with cannabis in any way, shape, or form. I'm glad it's legalized. I have heard what you're talking about with the city council and the cannabis issue. I think that is also a bigger issue than just D6. I think that ultimately, I'm just getting to know the issues there, but I support people who want to smoke and that it's legal, or gummies or whatever that may be. Was there a specific issue that you're aware of?
What I was overhearing was that they feel that they're being harassed. It's like every month they have somebody coming in and saying they need some permit to bring something up to code, but they're not doing it all in one visit. It's like, okay, why didn't you tell us we needed the sprinklers last month? We would have done it when we had the contractor out for XYZ. It's like they feel like they're being codified or penalized just constantly. And I'm not super aware of the situation. I was just trying to think about what I heard people asking about that mattered to them last night. And that was something to where they felt like there needed to be some kind of rules to where, you know, if the city inspector comes, that they're not coming every 30 days with something new.
Mm-hmm.
So it can't be construed as harassment.
Yeah.
So that was one
I
of
mean,
the
if that's happening, yeah, no, I would 100% agree with that. If it sounds, I mean, based on this limited info, it definitely sounds like it could be harassment of some kind. But I will look into that for sure.
Okay. Another one that I was hearing was, where do you stand on Prop 47 and crime rates? If there was an opportunity to help you exercise your authority or your position as city council, what stance would you take on repealing Prop 47 or trying to address the crime issues in the city?
That Prop 47 is a topic that I have researched so much. First of all, we voted for Prop 47 10 years ago. And now it's just all of a sudden a problem that people are paying attention to. And the cops are telling us that their hands are tied as far as arrests are going. 10 years, it wasn't a problem, you know, what, up until, shoot, 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, where the police are frustrated that they can't, you know, arrest people, you know. So for anyone who's not familiar with Prop 47, it was originally called the Safe Schools and Neighborhood Act, and it was geared to reduce the prison population, and we all voted for it. 60% of us actually voted for it. And the way it was sold to us made sense. Yes, let's reduce, you know, nonviolent should not be in prison. Let's reduce the population. And then the money that was saved from that was supposed to go toward addiction and rehab services for the drug offenses. And then, of course, it raised the misdemeanor amount of theft to $950 from, I think it was $500. So I've had some really kind of conflicting feelings about this, because at first, when I first was being told that Prop 47 is the problem, I thought, yeah, let's get rid of Prop 47. That sounds like, how did we get here, you know? But then also another thing about about oversight, where's the money going that was supposed to help the problem, right? The money that was saved reducing the prison population. So it's another one of those, where's that money going, and is it being spent well, and is that money actually helping? So I, at first, yes, I definitely was like, I was in the repeal 47. I found a petition online, and I shopped that around. It had several thousand, over 100,000 signatures on that petition. And then as I got to know more about it, I mean, I definitely don't want to increase the prison population. I don't think that's the answer. And with regard to the addiction side of it, as it stands right now, an offender can choose rehab or choose prison, right? So they do have that option. But if they choose rehab, there's nothing keeping them there. There's nothing keeping them at that facility to go through their addiction treatment. So how does that make sense? They can leave and you never see them again. You know, they can leave an hour later and they're never seen again, and they don't get the help they need. So one thing that I think potentially will help this situation, at least with the addiction side, is AB 1360 that's being introduced, that basically keeps people at the facility and potentially gives them incentive if they go through their treatment as is required. That offense can potentially be expunged from their record. And then there's the possibility of further services at the end of their treatment to help, get them back into society or as a functioning member of society. So I think AB 1360 definitely has some hope. As far as the theft side of it, our society changes constantly. Maybe it made sense 10 years ago when we voted for this, but as it stands right now, with these organized theft rings, DA Ho just introduced some, I can't remember what he called it, but he's involved with, this retail drug theft that is surging. So I don't think 47 should be repealed, but I do think it should be modified.
Okay. Got it. I see a couple comments in here. I think they're in line with what we were talking about earlier. One says, the COC also put a pause on moving anyone from off the street into permanent housing until they transfer 120 plus folks from rapid rehousing project into the permanent housing units, and people are still being evicted.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody else commented, Tom Pace oversees code enforcement and animal control, a leadership issue.
Don't get me started on Front Street and that issue. Front Street is another one of our broken departments, and Zimmerman took over the handling of that in 2019, right before the pandemic. And I have a lot of friends who are animal activists, and I've learned a lot about the running of Front Street. I do think Front Street needs a new director. I learned also that, they've been hammering into, and I want to make it clear first, I am an animal lover. I have 2 dogs that I'm actually surprised you haven't heard from on this.
In the beginning, yeah.
But it's been hammered into us that the shelters are at capacity. They're at capacity. They're at capacity. Well, that's not exactly true. They've actually reduced their capacity limits, but their budget has increased. So that's another thing that doesn't make sense to me. And Front Street relies heavily on their volunteers, but they get millions of dollars. And they also rely on, oh shoot, now I can't remember it. It's a UC Davis, Correct. They rely on the correct theory, relying on the public to take animals into their homes, which some people can, but other people absolutely cannot. And then I recently learned during one of the presentations at City Council when Animal Services came up, that because of their budget, they are now going to stop picking up strays. Well, I should rephrase. They're going to stop picking up healthy strays because it's the least priority with what they can deal with. They don't have they don't have enough animal control officers, and they don't pay animal control officers. I could go on all night about this topic, but it's really frustrating to me. Our unhoused animals, our animals in shelters. I mean, it's all a mess.
Agreed. Okay. So another question we had was, knowing what we know now, in retrospect, following the COVID-19 pandemic, what government responses do you think should be repeated and which do you think should not?
Ooh, I don't know what should be repeated, because if we wouldn't be in this position. One thing that I am very passionate about, I've learned a lot about Haven for Hope, which is a homeless, it's one of the only proven methods. It's in San Antonio. Have you heard of it? The Haven for Hope?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that is another thing that I think should be brought to Sacramento. And I know a lot of people who are on board and have extensive knowledge about making that happen. For those who don't know, it's a campus in San Antonio, Texas, and it has various levels of assistance for our unhoused population. It starts with their courtyard, which is gated and safe, where they can come and sleep. And then depending on their needs, they can get that help, whether, like I said, addiction services. And the reason I bring this up is Mayor Steinberg went there in 2019, and he came back with nothing but great things to say about it. Thought it was just, the cat's meow, so to speak, and nothing happened. And that has really kind of been the status quo and why we're here right now. And granted, no one could have predicted a pandemic, right? We're obviously in a very much different place in this world than we were in 2019. But I think that if Steinberg had actually gotten that going, if anyone had done anything extensive to get our unhoused, to basically preempt what is currently happening, to have that foresight, to know that, especially with the direction California is going and the affordability crisis, housing affordability, inflation that's happening, ridiculous apartment rent, all of those things, we would, I think, be ahead of the game, but we are not. So things that I think should continue: rent control. Rent control is a big topic for me. I definitely support the current rent and tenant right control. I didn't say that very correctly, but I support that. But I also think that it needs to be rewritten a bit. It expires at the end of this year. And I think that tenants need more protection. And also something I've been thinking on is our slumlord situation. And I live along Stockton Boulevard. There are tons of vacant lots, vacant buildings. A lot of these absent property owners, ultimately, they aren't there. They don't care about these buildings. One specifically, if you're familiar with the area, the buildings in the strip where Luigi's Pizza is, that is also owned by a slumlord, and she makes no improvements, no nothing, and charges astronomical rent, and apparently lives in a McMansion in East Sacramento. So I think that something I would like to look into are potential bigger fines for these slumlords. People deserve a safe place to live. They deserve a safe place to do business. They deserve to live somewhere where everything works, and their landlord responds to their concerns and safety issues. So that was a really long-winded response. I hope that answered your question.
It did. So another one is, given our deficit at the federal and state levels, you touched on this a little bit. Newsom even dubbed it as a state deficit as a budgetary emergency recently. Do you think more taxes are necessary or less in terms of the city council budget?
So it is my opinion that city council did not manage our money very well and hasn't. And that's why we are in this $50 million deficit. I am not voting for Measure C for multiple reasons. How about manage the money we already give you? And once you figure that out, then we can talk about more money.
Fair. And then this one, you'll mildly see it with city council based on the school districts. There's controversy now about books available to children in schools regarding sexuality. Do you think that there should be a limit to sexual content students are exposed to in school? Where do you draw the line? And that would cross your path in the sense that whether Sacramento PD is being encouraged to enforce certain statutes and how they would relate to sexuality in schools.
I think sex education is incredibly important in schools. In fact, growing up, my mom was not one to talk about that stuff. I learned a lot. I had a very, very conservative, uptight mom. I loved her to death, but she was not someone who spoke about the body and things like that. And I think it's incredibly important to have that discussion and education in schools.
Okay. Does anybody watching have a question? I've seen comments come in as we've been talking, but if you have a question, now is your opportunity. Trying to think anything that we did not cover. What do you see as areas of opportunity to support small businesses in your district?
Stockton Boulevard is it is definitely going to be part of my plan to revitalize. It's very hard for a business to be successful on Stockton Boulevard. It's a fast moving street, even though there are bike lanes. I've had friends who have gotten hit on bikes. Stockton Boulevard has been neglected for longer than the 20 years that I've lived here. And it is definitely going to be it's going to be one of my pet projects, especially living 2 blocks off of it. I think there needs to be, a lot of these buildings, people don't know that there might be parking behind because they're right up to the sidewalk, right? So they don't know where they can park. And it's a real struggle for a lot of our small businesses along that corridor. So I've got some big plans. So that's the one thing for my district that I'm going to definitely work on.
I see a question here. It says, have you had any success with helping any unhoused neighbors, challenges, anything you would change if you win?
Yes, I have had some success helping some of our unhoused neighbors. Last fall, our elderly unhoused neighbor, Michael, this is kind of a long story, so I'll try and shorten it, but I approached him. I made contact with him. He had been sleeping on one of our streets in my neighborhood, 63 years old, disabled. He'd had multiple seizures. He had mobility issues and just sleeping on the streets. One of our elderly, and there's so many of our elderly that are becoming more and more in this situation. So I made contact with him and I called 211, found out he was on the shelter wait list. He had gotten a shelter assessment 4 or 5 days beforehand, but it was going to take 4 or 5 weeks to get him a bed. So I was on the phone with every single city official that I could think of to get this guy off the streets. And in the meantime, my coalition, we all came together and we got him some clothes. We got him a warmer sleeping bag. We got him some food. We helped him, as much as we could. And it took me specifically 3 days to figure out that Michael already had a bed. he has memory issues and would forget. And that was actually one of the most infuriating things to me, because he'd been contacted multiple times by our HMIS system and had another shelter assessment, but there's no communication between HMIS and the shelter system. So they have no idea who already has a bed. And this poor man they had made contact with him multiple times, but he was still on the streets. So we got him back to X Street, where he is now safe, and he got to take a shower, which was great. And he was desperate at the time. When I was talking to him on a few of our visits, he was crying. He was so depressed, and I get it. So right now, as far as our other unhoused neighbors, my project is the Greens Motel, to get them as much help as possible on multiple levels. I think I told you that we have the district attorney involved, so that they can see what's going on there. But we're just, my coalition and we do what we can to help them with what they need, whether it's toiletries, a mother who is escaping a violent partner. She has 3 children. She's fairly new there and is having a hell of a time getting her 3 children registered in school. So we're working on that for her. So, it's just her, and she can't work if her kids are, with her all the time. So we're getting that going. And we're just doing what we can. And it's my idea to hold people accountable. I'm really big on accountability, and I think there's been a lot that has not been happening on the accountability topic. We are here for a reason.
We are. Okay, so here's another question. It says, speaking of Stockton Boulevard, how do you plan on supporting the Sacramento Sheriff with their plan on fighting sex trafficking along Stockton Boulevard? They've seen lines of cars waiting for prostitutes, and there's multiple spots where that's happening, but in your district, that's one.
Yes, that's actually, Stockton Boulevard has been the place for that for 20 years. And obviously it's a lot worse right now. I deal mostly with the Sacramento Police Department. I'm on the city side, and Stockton Boulevard is on the other side, which is the county and the sheriff. And everyone, kind of talks about how great the county is doing with our unhoused. And basically, they're not doing great. The county's not doing great. The city's not doing great. And I'm sure you've heard about the $25 million that is sitting there with the county and hasn't been spent to address our homeless. But back to the trafficking. It's a problem. And we also have CASH, which is the organization for against sexual harm. So I definitely want to work with them on that as much as possible. And yeah, I mean, Sac Sheriff, Sac PD, it's a really interesting place to live, right on the edge of the city and the county. You can actually see that the sheriff and the police not really working very well together. And I hope that improves. So I don't know if that's realistic, but unfortunately, victims are not as important as the sheriff police department relationship, or lack thereof.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the relationship with city council and those agencies could help? Do you think it's a top-down leadership issue, or do you think it's related just to the chiefs and the sheriff? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know, honestly. Everything is top-down, though, isn't it? Mm-hmm. We have a definite lack of accountability. I know I keep saying that, but it's unbelievable to me. I think city council has been the Wild West for the last several years, where you know, we've all been in this pandemic, not paying close attention to what's going on, and now we are, and they're mad that we are seeing what they're doing. So I hope that a new, quote unquote, new city council, new mayor definitely has an effect on the relationships between our law enforcement agencies.
Okay, so I don't see any other questions coming in. We went longer than I'd planned, but it was good.
Thank you.
Is there, oh wait, here's another one. It says since 2013, oh, it flagged it because they have the word killed. Darn algorithms. So since 2013, City Council killed inclusionary housing. Now we have gentrification and homelessness. What will you do differently?
Yeah, so I am a big proponent of affordable housing, inclusionary housing. I think our builders I think our builders need to have rules and regulations that I'm losing my ability to talk. There need to be rules and regulations with new construction that include inclusionary housing and affordable housing. I have the Mercy Housing Project called the Heights that is opening soon. It's 200 units. Well, actually, I guess it's 198 units, and that went quick, and that has taken years to build. And there's a couple of more potential housing developments that are coming up along that same area. But I think affordability has been an absolute issue, and I did not agree with that decision in 2013, and I think it has definitely been something that's helped lead us to where we are now.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you for your time. Do you have like the last 30 seconds, minute of how you want to conclude it?
You know, my name is KC Shuft, and I've been in Sacramento for 23 years, and I am someone who is ready to make a difference in this city. Like I said earlier, I'm very action and results oriented, and it is time for Sacramento. We want action, and I am definitely that person to vote for if you want action, transparency, and overall a better place to live. Let's return Sacramento back to its former glory, and I would love your help to get there. So vote for me on March 5th. It's time, you guys. We're done. We're done with our current leadership. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, you have a great night.
All right. Thanks, you too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.